Torah in the courts of heaven. This is the Torah portion, Yitro. And if we were to say his name in English, it would be Jethro. And I love that name. It reminds me of an old television show so many years ago where there was a character by the name of Jethro Bodine, Beverly Hillbillies. But this is not that. Jethro or Yitro is a very prominent person in the Bible. A little something about Yitro. By the 14th century BC, before the cult of Yahweh had reached Israel, groups of Edomites and Midianites worshiped Yahweh as their God. So it says the cult of Yahweh because please understand that this is from a secular history, and they call the worship of Yahweh a cult. When, of course, actually, worship of Yahweh is worshiping the one true God, the real God of the universe. But there were Midianites who worshipped him. The priests of Midian, or the prince of Midian, as the officers were usually conjoined, he was the ruler also of the people called the Cushites, or the Ethiopians. And like many other chiefs or pastoral people in that early age, he still retained the faith and the worship of true God. So when we think about Yitro and the times that you see him mentioned with his son-in-law Moshe or Moses, we have to remember, if you ever wondered, that he does believe and follow the one true God, Yahweh. There were 7 daughters he had who were shepherdesses, to whom Moses was favorably introduced by an act of courtesy and courage in protecting them from the rude shepherds of some of the neighboring tribes at a well. He afterwards formed a close and permanent alliance with this family by marrying one of the daughters, Zipporah, or which means a little bird, called a Cushite or an Ethiopian, and whom Moses doubtless obtained in the manner of Jacob by service. So this is from Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown, an old and very reliable commentary of the Bible. So Yitro came after the sea divide. In Genesis 25, the Midianites were the descendants of Midian, who were a son of Abraham and his wife Keturah. So you see, Yitro would have been a great-great-grandson of Abraham. In Genesis 37, it says, Joseph was sold to the Midianites. Therefore, they rescued him. So Joseph represents Israel, and the Midianites represent the other sons of Abraham who rescue Israel. So Yitro also is a rescuer of Israel, as he on several occasions rescued Moses. And not only rescued him, but gave him some very important information, one of which was when Moses was basically overwhelmed with all of his responsibilities of being the judge of Israel, that Yitro gave him the idea of dividing up his chores, so to speak, and allowing other people to assist him in what he did. And that's a good lesson for all of us. Sometimes you can hear of a person, and you may be one of those, who it says has too many irons in the fire, too much going on, get to the point where you're so overworked that you don't even have time for anything, yourself or anything. You actually have more going on than there are hours in the day. And that's the case, you need to do something. You need to change somewhere. You need to set priorities. And this is what basically Yitro was telling Moses. And again, it's a simple, practical, and yet it's very spiritual lesson for us to learn. You know, if we're serving the Lord and things begin to get difficult somewhere in where we're serving, in that area of service, there may be something that God's trying to show you. Maybe it's time for a change in your ministry or in your job or in whatever is going on. So again, let's remember that Yitro was from Midian. Yitro, a Gentile, was a son of Abraham, which I've already spoken about, whose name means excellence, is one used by Yahweh to rescue his chosen people. So if Yitro was a Gentile and he was one who would be used to rescue the chosen people of God, what could this mean for the Gentile people of God who contain his excellence? And I ask the question, are you willing? As a Gentile, if you're a believer, if you're a follower of Yeshua, then God most certainly wants to use you in these last days in which we're living in. This last anti-Messiah kingdom is soon coming on the earth. It's already beginning to grow tentacles in the foundation. And at some point, we're going to actually begin to see who the leader or ruler of this person is. As it says in the Bible that the man of perdition will be revealed, that we won't be taken away. We won't be removed from the situation of the world until the man of perdition is revealed. And that hasn't happened yet, but it could be very soon, just around the corner. So we want to go to Daniel because Daniel gave us some very incredible prophecy on what these last moments of time would look like and who possibly could be the clue to look for in this anti-Messiah person. So in Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. Now, every time that you saw where I just read the verse, mixed, it's the actual word in the Hebrew Concordance. 6151 is the number in the Strong's Concordance, and the word is actually Arab. It's actually the word Arab. So every time you saw this, every time we mention this non-mixing, it's the word Arab. So this is definitely not just a hint or a clue. It's, I think, the answer of where this person would come from and what kingdom it would be. It would be this Arab kingdom. And you see there's a lot of disturbance in the Arab world right now, and there has been for the last several years. Until recently, this has always been believed to be the Roman Empire. And so what I mean by that is we've been taught, most of us, from our typical Christian history, that the Roman Empire would be the last kingdom, or the renewed Roman Empire, which the Antichrist would come upon. And indeed, it was the Roman Empire that Yeshua lived and walked around in. It was the Romans that controlled the world at his time. But it looks like it will actually be an Arab kingdom that will be where the Antichrist comes from and what kind of tries to take control of the world at the end. Daniel gives or foretells who makes it to this end. So first in Daniel chapter 11:31, it says, and forces shall be mustered by him, and by him speaking of the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. So, quite frankly, what has to happen then is at some point the sanctuary fortress, which of course would be the temple, and maybe not exactly the temple, maybe just the sense of that there will be a place where the Jewish people will be allowed to give their daily sacrifices as they did 2,000 years ago. They will be re-allowed to start sacrifices. And at some point, this anti-Messiah will stop this allowance. In actuality, he will probably be the one that allows the Jews to begin the sacrifice, making them believe and trust in him, and then he will stop it. And not only will he stop it, but he will make up the desolation of the abomination that's spoken of by Daniel. When we see this, and it's already happened when we think of Antiochus Epiphanes, and we go back to the period of Hanukkah, when we know the temple was desecrated by Antiochus Epiphanes. And So there was that desolation, abomination of desolation, but there's others, and there's going to be a final one, which will be the Antichrist in the final days. So the next one is Daniel 11:32. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. Now, this is exciting to think about. I think about this pretty regular, not necessarily in this exact verse, but this verse kind of supports me in what I think, which is there are going to be people who rise up and will do evil, and will corrupt in these last days. And we see it all around us already. Wickedness like we've never even heard of before. Some of the things that I'm hearing now, I've never even heard of before. Like these things with this gender and so many people going along with people being a girl, but they think their gender is a boy or whatever. It's insanity is what it is. It's evil. And yet the world is looking at it like it's okay, like it's good. It's always been this way. Finally, somebody's come along and set things straight. And you see, it's not being set straight. It's being knocked off the hinges. But people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. So in the midst of all this evil, the people who know their God will be strong, and they will carry out great exploits, of which I don't even know what that can all be. But God is going to do great things through his people that are strong in him and aren't swayed by the lies and the trickery that's going on in the world. In verse 33 of chapter 11, Daniel, it says, "And those of the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering, being confirmed." So it's going to happen. It's going to be confirmed that these people who trust God, who teach about God, are ultimately then, sadly, they're going to be ruined. But only in the flesh, because they will go on. Let's go to Hebrews 11:35. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. This is from Hebrews, speaking about Christians. And this has already happened in the world. You have to remember, all the way back to the first century, the Romans tortured believers. They tuck them into to every kind of place, every kind of open place, every kind of place in public to torture them, and so that people could see it. But it's all going to take place and happen again. This is what we have to look forward to. And so we have to be strong and of good courage in the Lord. It says in Romans 13:7, "It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation." So this him who was granted to make war is the enemy, is Satan. And he's going to make war with the saints, and he's going to overcome us. And but again, it's only in the physical. He will not spiritually overcome us. We overcome in the end. We win. And it's like said in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 35, that women will receive their dead back again. They will be raised from the dead. Even though they've been through this terrible torture and these things, they will be raised back. Now, fourthly, Daniel chapter 11 verse 41, it says, "He," which is the Antichrist, from 2 Thessalonians 2:3 says, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed," which I spoke about this a moment ago, "the son of perdition." the son of perdition is the Antichrist. And again, this can be found in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. So that day that it's speaking about is the day of the Lord. The Lord is not going to return until there's a great following away of the believers. And the man of sin is revealed. The Antichrist will be revealed. We will know who he is. And then it says, so back to Daniel, it says, he shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. So there will be some people that survive this Antichrist thing on the earth when it occurs. But the whole world will be affected, make no mistake. Then in verse 42 of Daniel chapter 11, it says, he shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. So obviously it's telling us here that Egypt will be in trouble when this occurs. The whole world's going to be in trouble. You could look at Egypt as the rest of the world, because Egypt are the Gentiles. And of course, America, we are the Gentiles. Everywhere is the Gentiles. There's only one nation actually that is Jewish, and that's Israel. Even though you have Jews living throughout the world, they have to return to their land. And we've spoken about that in many other lessons, but we have to remember that does have to occur. The Jewish people have to return to their land before all these terrible events begin to occur. And this is very soon. A foreshadowing of the end, which we mentioned this a minute ago, was Antiochus, marching to wreak his wrath on the Jews, did not meddle with Edom, Moab, and Ammon on the side of Judea. So this is from the book Maccabees, chapter 4, verse 61, and chapter 5, verse 3. It stated that Antiochus used their help in crushing the Jews, of whom they were ancient enemies. So the Maccabees made war on them as the friends of Antiochus. 1 Maccabees 5, 1 through 68, the Turks under the Selim entered Jerusalem on their way to Egypt and retained the glorious land of Palestine to this day. But they never could conquer the Arabs, who are akin to Edom, Moab, and Ammon. So is the case of the final Antichrist. So you see, the reason they survive is because they will be part of the problem. The man of perdition will end. Even these things, that this information sounds very hard to hear, it does come to an end. These difficulties will end. They do come to a finish. In Daniel chapter 11:45, it says, he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. So the Antichrist will surely be all over the place, with many people on his side will stand with him, but he will come to an end. In Revelation 19:20, it says, then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those to receive the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And the rest were killed with the sword which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse. And the man who sat on the horse, from the mouth of him, is Yeshua. This is Revelation 19:11. And all the birds were filled with their flesh. We go with him. When this happens, we will go with him. So I say, let's go. Let this come. Let all these things that God has foretold to us, let them come. And be ready, dear saints. Be ready for what tribulation is going to come up on this earth. Be ready in the sense that you're asking God to make you ready, to build you up, to give you strength in these times that are coming. Revelations 19:14, and the armies glorified by the saints in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. You see, we will be with the Lord on white horses. Are you ready to ride?